kind of really for the winter preparedness side, I think for communities, there's a couple of things, and we're happy to share some information. I think the first one is there is a government website to check your surface water flood risk. It's essentially giving residents a chance to see the extents of kind of where the surface water flood risk might be in relation to their postcode. And if there's not much specific information on there, you can contact your local authority just to kind of get maybe a more detailed idea of what may or may not happen. With surface water, it's a bit difficult because it's dependent on how the weather systems and patterns change, and the monitoring for those systems is slightly kind of more real-time element. So I kind of will leave those details with anyone who would like to kind of share that with their communities or their networks. And then the other real kind of key point of information we'll share as National Flood Forum is if anybody has any issues or residents or neighbours with questions regarding flooding insurance. So that might be people who suffered in the last events in and around London in 2021 and 2022. And if they've got some questions around it's coming up to the renewal of their flood insurance, or that they would like some more specific advice or information on what's the best insurance to get, please do give us a ring. We have a dedicated helpline to that. And then just kind of what I really wanted to focus on is we are doing some work supporting communities in and around London for um, the longer term development of flooded communities and groups, and helping them look at the longer term solutions that may be in and around working with different partners. So I'll just go through something that we're working on called the London Community Flood Action Plan Programme. Next slide, please. Just a little bit about us. National Flood Forum, we're a UK-based charity. We support communities across England and Wales, and we've been doing this for over 20 years. We essentially help people through managing the impacts of flooding and work on kind of their short, medium, and long-term strategies to help reduce that flood risk. We're a project lead for the London Community Flood Action Plan programme. So essentially, this is a programme that the Thames RFCC, the Regional Flood and Coastal Committee, is undertaking, supporting communities across London with our support. This came about after a pilot project between ourselves and Thames Water in 2022 that was looking at supporting specific communities that were affected after the July 2021 floods. Next slide, please. So really the key part of that pilot phase was developing a community-led approach to the flood response. As you're maybe aware, with surface water, and especially what happened in London, it's very quick, very intense, and it can happen anywhere across the city. So really part of the pilot program was to kind of look at three key aspects, really. Number one was empowering communities, allowing them to engage with the right management authorities. Part of that engagement was then creating some partnership working, so looking at how we could bring together other stakeholders, and kind of the remix and crux of those empowerment and partnership working is to kind of co-create a range of flood mitigation measures. The honest answer is, especially in a large city like London, we have to think about the multiple sources of water that can affect communities, and also kind of the infrastructural issues and problems they may face. That's then moved on to the main program that I was discussing, and essentially part of this is expanding and supporting additional communities, and we're looking to support 8 further communities in the London area, and also deepening that engagement with the existing flood action groups and helping them with any increased preparedness support they can do with their wider community. I think the key of this project is there is a little bit of self-sufficiency to kind of work on, so leaving communities better prepared once we've supported them through the initial phase of partnership working. Next slide, please. So essentially, this program kind of runs, or has been running since 2022, and it runs up until 2028. So kindly, Ed's done a really brilliant diagram here, which shows we're currently sitting in phase 3. So what we'll be looking at for 2025 and 2026 is to engage with 4 further communities to help bring them through that program. We currently have 6 communities we've established from the pilot phase, and 3 communities we're working in over the last year. So we kind of work with communities wherever London boroughs and partners have had flooding issue. So it's kind of really important that as we move through these phases, more communities are able to jump on and join during that. Next slide. So yeah, the scale of the program, as you can see, it's a lot of engagement, a lot of working with communities based in multiple boroughs across the city. And what we're looking to do is kind of create a structure of those communities be able to work together, also work with those agencies and partnerships. But I think the key thing is, especially around the preparedness aspect, is to try and get those communities to work wider with other community groups, other elements of their community that may be able to help them before, during, and after a flood as well. I mean, as you can see through our pilot phase, and also through the last phase, we've had quite a lot of meetings, quite a lot of community members active and join, and we're really looking forward to engage with more. Next slide, please. Just wanting to kind of finish off on this side with the presentation of kind of success stories of better preparedness and being able to kind of engage and empower communities. So some of these communities are in the London boroughs we're currently working in, and some of them are in the pilot phase. But essentially, those properties that were affected by the 2021 flood, for us, what we wanted to do was help those communities with solutions they felt would work, and also what they could do in partnership with their local borough councils. Key achievements for this area in West End Avenue and Peterborough Road, so this is in the borough of Waltham Forest, was really looking at how we could help support one of the key issues, which is collecting that rainwater off the roofs, which was actually exacerbating and making the issue worse there because of the drainage network and the sewage system being unable to cope with the excess rain during an intense period. So what was really, really successful was led and funded by Waltham Forest with support from those community groups we've worked with, is that we were able to help using that flood action group and their local community network to arrange the installation of over 1,000 water butts. So if we kind of do the numbers, and I'm sorry, maths isn't my strong point, that's a lot of litres of water captured off people's roofs, and really important to kind of help that. And those communities were the key voice in helping with that. And that kind of links in again, preparing for whenever there is maybe adverse weather coming, those communities galvanising and checking their systems to make sure there's enough capacity to capture that rainwater off the roofs. Next slide, please. Another example is I think there's a lot of work to do in terms of preparedness for kind of emergency response and community response to that emergency. So again, looking in the borough of Waltham Forest, we work with a community in Wood Street North, and they also had some capital funding to do some underground, under the road attenuation, so storing the water essentially. But one of the key achievements for that group was, as well as that community SUDS project, as it's called, is also getting critical funding for further work to look at feasibility and design of a community-led SUD scheme, so sustainable drainage system scheme, essentially. And that was, again, working together, working with local community partners to get some extra funding from the Mayor's Grow Back Greener Fund. And again, awarding that money was a real positive. And now that group is currently working on detailed designs and construction of their own community-based scheme, working in collaboration with the local cricket ground to bring in other elements of the community as well for support. Next slide, please. The key aim of this project is, while there are specific things to do from an individual point on winter preparedness, I think part of the work, especially in London, is kind of the long-term engagement and support. So we just kind of wanted to finish with, we are getting close to the application for that phase 3, as mentioned in one of the slides. So really, there's just a few key things to remember here is that if a London Borough or anybody on the call might be thinking that their London Borough is eligible and there's been flooded people and communities within your boroughs, it's to check that eligibility and ask the London Borough to come and have a chat with myself or Ed. There is a contribution based on the funding aspect from the Thames RFCC. But also, it's really important that we can gather that flood data and relevant documents from those boroughs if they're interested. We'll then send out a form for them to fill, and we'll kind of review those applications by the 3rd of March. The application process goes live just at the end of November, beginning of December. So I'll leave my details and number as well if anybody wants to share those with any of your borough contacts who might be interested in this programme and would like us to maybe think about supporting one of their flooded communities. Thank you.